Let's mirror parts and subassemblies. We'll look at what to look out for when using the mirror command, fix a few parts that Solid Edge wasn't treating properly in the mirror command, and edit a mirror feature to add a part to the selection. So let's take a little bit of a shortcut here and use the mirror command. Before we do that, I'm just going to right click and choose show all. And now I'm just going to hide anything we don't want to include in the mirror. So I'm going to click on our base plate here and hide that. We only need one of those. I'm going to try and get our pattern sketch here and hide that. And now I'm going to click on this plane, press Control, click on this plane, while still holding Control, click on this plane, and just hit this little eyeball with the line through to hide them. Okay, so I'm just going to left click and window select all of the parts here. Now they're all selected, and we're just going to take a quick look to make sure nothing has been missed. Everything is in this kind of bright luminous green. It's all selected. Nothing's jumping out at me, so I'm happy we've selected all the parts and sub-assemblies. And I'm just going to go up here and choose mirror components. If we look over here, we have select components to be mirrored. We've already selected them, so I'm just going to right click to accept them. And now our next step is select the mirror plane. So our mirror plane, because we've modeled everything symmetrically about our base reference plane, I'm going to choose the front plane here as our mirror plane. And now we get this mirror components window. Maybe let's just tuck it up a little bit out of the way. And let's take a little look at what our mirror did. We're just looking over this now at kind of a high level, just to check there's nothing that looks kind of wrong. And the first thing I notice is these two towers have no base plate, but these two mirrored towers do have base plates. So when these two source towers here on the right hand side were modeled, we created occurrence properties to hide the base plate in higher level assemblies, but those occurrence properties weren't carried over to these mirrored features. So we're going to need to fix that. Okay, so that's one thing. Looking at everything else here, so far so good. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Let me just take a look in here. Yeah, everything else looks good. Okay. It's kind of almost tempting now to just accept that mirror and go ahead with our business, but actually, let's take a look at this in a little bit more detail. I'm going to collapse these two sub-assemblies here and take a look. So we have the name here of our mirror of our components and our sub-assemblies. And we also have this action of what Solid Edge is doing with them. So these two top sub-assemblies, if I click on it here, we can see on the right hand side we have something selected orange. That's our source sub-assembly. And on the left is the green. That's the output of our mirror command. So what Solid Edge has done with that is that it has created a mirror of our source to create this output here. So it hasn't just plonked another copy of this tower here. It has created a mirror of that tower. So this is here is the source, our components. So I didn't name it properly, but there's the name here, 2601 CESC-032-C, that's .asm. And then Solid Edge created a separate output file based on that same name, but it ends in _mirror2.asm. Okay, so it's a completely different file, which is a mirror image of our source. And the same happened here with the front tower. Solid Edge created a mirror image of this front tower subassembly and inserted it symmetrically about this plane. And now let's look at some of these blocks here. So if I click on one of the blocks here, we can see again, we have our source block here, which is highlighted orange. And then we have the mirrored version of the block highlighted green shown in our assembly. But you'll notice these blocks, they're symmetrical. Solid Edge didn't need to create a mirror image of that block and insert it into the assembly. It could just use the same block again. And Solid Edge is kind of smart enough to realize that. So instead of actually doing a mirror action and having an output file, it just reuses the same file and it actually rotates it. In this case, it's rotating it about the right plane. And because we have had a look over our assembly of our mirrored components and sub-assemblies, and we're happy enough that it all looks pretty good, all that we were really going to look over here in our checks, that Solid Edge mirrored parts appropriately, that it didn't make unnecessarily mirrors of parts or sub-assemblies. So we could, if we're kind of concentrating on mirrors, we can just double click here, and now we're organizing our parts and sub-assemblies by mirrored. So we're just going to kind of concentrate on these. So I'm going to click on this top here of our mirrored parts and have a look over here. Okay, so here again, we have our source block and our destination block, but Solid Edge didn't kind of think to rotate this block around. Instead, it mirrored it and created a copy of it, which is a mirror image. So it has created a whole separate output file. And that's totally kind of unnecessary. We could have just got the same block and flipped it around to use it here. So we can kind of say to Solid Edge, nice try, but you didn't really get that one, buddy. So we're going to click on mirror here, expand it down and change it to rotate. And now you'll notice our block is upside down, so that's no fun. But you notice it's rotating about the top plane. So instead of that, maybe we could try the right plane. And now it's flipped back up again and it's perfectly positioned. And we no longer have an output file. We're just reusing the same source part and rotating it. So that's exactly what we want. And we can click down here to the next one here. And it's the exact same problem again. We have this part. It's under creating a mirror image of it here. Instead, we can just rotate and reuse the same part. Flips down. So we're going to do it about the right plane again. And it's back in position. And click on the next one. And it's the same thing again. So it looks like we've captured all the mirrored parts in the main assembly. So let's take a look now at our sub-assemblies. So at the top subassembly here, we're looking at this source tower and this mirrored tower. And we can just expand that out. We're happy that it did need to mirror the whole tower. We couldn't reuse the same tower and rotate it. But as we expand it out, let's look at how it used its parts. And we see the same, it seems to be having the same problem with the same parts within this assembly. So it didn't need to actually make a mirror copy of that part. We could have just used the same part and rotated it. And if we click through, we notice the same thing happening again and again. And I'm just going to maybe expand out this window a little bit and just take a look at these file names. So if we look here, it's way too long, but we can see that all of these mirrored components have an identical file name. So it's the same part having the same issue again and again and again. We're getting the same output file here as well. I'm pretty confident now that we know the same issue is happening again and again and again with the same part within this subassembly. So instead of going through it slowly one by one, we can do it a little bit more efficiently. I'm just going to scroll back over here. Maybe we can give ourselves a little bit of room again. And we can use some keyboard shortcuts. So I'm just going to click on the top affected part here. While that cell is selected, I'm going to press the R key on my keyboard and hit enter. And now I'm going to press the down arrow on my keyboard. R, enter, down, R, enter, down, R, enter, down. And you'll notice as I'm doing this, all of these output files are disappearing because we're reusing the same source file and we're just rotating it. So we can go R, enter, down, R, enter, down, R, enter, down, R, enter, down. So that's all of those done. And if we take a look at our model here, it's a kind of a shambles because these are all upside down blocks now. We've lots of holes in our assembly. That's because these are all rotated now about the top plane. And so let's change that. Let's go for, instead of top, maybe let's try the right plane. That's what worked for us earlier in the main assembly. So I'm going to click in this cell, press R for the right plane, enter. That flips up now and press the down arrow. Okay, so I'm going to press R, enter, down, R, enter. That looks pretty good. Everything in that tower subassembly now looks all rotated parts. That all looks good. So I'm just going to collapse that, and now let's look in the next tower here and expand that out. And again, we have some mirrored parts in that. So let's just select it and zoom in to investigate. And it's the same part here that's causing issues. So we can do the same here again. So I'm going to press R, enter, down, R, enter, down. So these are all the exact same part as we can see here from our output files. R, enter, down, or enter. And that's all of those done now. And if we look again here, we have a mess with all of these upside down blocks, 45-degree blocks. Looks like, yep, completely wrong. So let's do the same again now. So we're going to go back up here to our plane. And instead of rotating about the top plane, we're going to try rotating about the right plane. So I click in this cell, press R, enter, down, R, enter, down, R, enter, down. Okay, so that's all of those rotated about the right plane. And that's everything within that subassembly. So let's just collapse that. Right. Okay, so now I'm just going to, now that we've done that, we've kind of skipped through a lot of those R, enter, down. So let's just take another look over our mirrored assembly, just to make sure we're happy that everything has happened, everything looks okay. So all of these 45-degree blocks here are pointed in the right direction. Everything there looks okay, everything there looks okay, and everything here looks okay. So I'm just going to click OK and accept that mirror and click finish, and that's done. We can see it a little bit clearer now, so if you wanted to, you could take a look over it again, but I'm happy that's all been done correctly. I'm pretty happy with our mirror feature here, but we still have these two base plates here on our towers that we don't want. We want them to be similar to our source towers. I'm just going to right click on our base plate and choose scroll to. And we see here we have assembly copy 1. So I'm just going to click on assembly copy 1 and choose, oh, okay. So we have assembly copy 1 and then we have this assembly here. I'm going to click on this assembly, right click and choose open and click OK. And you can see in our Pathfinder, it's a mirror image of the other tower. So that's why we have an assembly copy here in our Pathfinder. And the only thing we're really worried about in this is this base plate. So I'm going to click on that, right click and choose occurrence properties. And I'm going to maybe scroll along here, display in higher level. I'm going to change that from yes to no. And for draft reference, no. You just change this again. And I'm just going to click OK here. And it looks like nothing has happened in this subassembly. I'm just going to save that and close it. And if we look back at our assembly now, we have no base plate under that tower. And we can take a look now just over our castle just to make sure everything mirrored properly. Yeah, it looks pretty damn good to me, to be honest. Okay, so I suppose the next step we could do is we could fill in the gaps along here. And we could do it more walkway here too. So let's just tidy that up. So I'm going to click on our steering wheel, move it to this peg, the center of the peg, press Control, click on the arrow, and we could copy it over to this peg, replace two other components where possible, click OK, choose the part below and the part beside, right click to accept, and I'm just going to choose delete for that, and we'll see how it goes. So I'm going to click on the part again, right click and choose scroll to, and that part hasn't been fully constrained in the assembly. But before we look at that, it's actually kind of obvious now that actually this part should have been part of our mirrored feature, and that would have worked out nicely. So before we fix that part, let's take a look at our mirror. To edit our mirror, we can see it here in our Pathfinder. So we can just click on it and choose edit, and we have each of the steps here. So we have the select component step. So if I click on that, we can see all of the parts that were selected to be part of the mirror. And more importantly, we can see this part is grey. It wasn't selected to be part of the mirror. So I'm just going to click on it to add it to the selection. Right click to accept. We get the same preview here with all of our selections. So I'm kind of happy we've gone through that and we've corrected all of those. So I'm just going to click OK to accept. And now our part has been mirrored across properly. So if I click finish here, we have that part mirrored in our assembly. But let's maybe have a look back. We can go to drag component, click OK, and drag this part. And you can see this part isn't fully constrained. It's free to rotate around that peg. So if we move it to there, let go, we see the mirrored part doing the mirror image of it, because the definition of that part is dependent on the source part. So we're going to give it an axial align between the center of this peg and the center of this peg, and both parts are brought back into position. So I'm just going to right click to exit, click on this part, and you can see here it's fully constrained now within the assembly. Now we got it. If you've been following along this series, we used an assembly pattern to create the sidewall and looked at some of the limitations of using assembly patterns. In our next video, we'll dive a little deeper and see how we can make assembly patterns work for us and how we can drop them when they're holding us back so we can get the best of both worlds. That's it, Joey. Talk to you in the next one.